Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse episode 317. I am Peter and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what is up?
Hey, that was some enthusiasm.
Yeah, I still have a little bit left from a very chaotic week where I saw my favorite band and lost all energy and then worked the next day. Not the next day, the day after. Worked a very long day. So it's real hit or miss. Right now I'm on a hit.
I don't think Space Girls were doing any gigs these days.
You would think, but they're actually doing small underground shows.
Oh, right.
And I know that was meant to be a slam, but I did see the Spice Girls live. So I was very upset that Ginger was gone, because when we got the tickets, she was still with the group. This was back in, what, 99? And yeah.
Honestly,
still a really good show, though.
My first joke was going to be Boyzone, but then I realised that you might not know who that is, because I don't think they made it to the US.
Nope, definitely not.
Basically, just like Irish, like...
I'm thinking Irish NSYNC.
Yeah, bit more ballady, I guess, than NSYNC, but yeah, effectively, yes.
Okay. So Irish Backstreet Boys.
Irish Backstreet Boys.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, no. Spice Girls, though, not too bad. It was a good concert.
All right, I don't know how to... this is a DC Comics podcast, everyone. Welcome. We talk about DC books every week. Connor is absent. He will hopefully be back next week. He doesn't know what his schedule is yet next week, I don't think. No, he does. I don't think he will be back next week. He'll be back. He'll always be back. He's like a...
The bad penny, he always turns up.
You know, much like waves of COVID, Connor will always rear his ugly head.
I remember a friend of mine decreeing that all ginger people are part of one disease, and he would call it gingivitis, like the mouth disease.
Yeah, gingivitis, yeah.
Yeah, so that's Connor in a nutshell.
All right. So yeah, coming up on this week's show, we will be talking about Dark Crisis issue 3, Batman issue 126, the new Champion of Shazam issue 1, Flashpoint Beyond issue 4. I said that weird. Flashpoint Beyond issue 4. Batman Killing Time issue 6, DC vs. Vampires issue 8, Aquaman Andromeda issue 2, and then I've got a couple of Patreon books that I owe that are slightly overdue, so I'll also be talking about American Vampire issue 28 and Animal Man issue 22. So that is what's coming up on the show. Not much news or other things to talk about, but a lot of comics to talk about, a lot of books. Yes. Actually, I say that there is actually one huge bit of news. It's just not comic book directly related, but it is huge for what it is.
We're ready to go on a rip-roaring time.
Well, hold on now. We'll get to news in a minute. Yeah. Because there's always time for a Comixology top 10. No?
You know.
Matt loves
for
it.
The listeners, that was an exasperated hand flailing. Because numbers are stupid, as it has been decreed.
Since Matt's a Space Girls fan, what you meant to whisper there was, tell me what I want, what I really, really want. And I was going to say, Comixology top 10!
I wish I could remember some of their other songs, but I can't. It's been a very long time.
I can't do any lyrics. I know one's two become one.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you any of the lyrics other than just maybe the title. I'm sure two become one is said in the song at some point. But
yeah.
That's all I got for you.
Good. So number one, is it Marvel or DC?
It is DC.
So I'm gonna guess Batman.
It's not Batman.
It's the Dark Crisis.
Dark Crisis issue 3 is the number one comic right now in Comixology, the sales chart. Number 2 is Batman, issue 126. So cool. DC taking the top 2 spots. You get an event in a Batman book. I mean, you know, it's usually how they win. Yeah. But
because if you had not said DC and said Marvel, it was going to be X-Men. Was my next guess. Well,
number 3 is X-Men Red, issue 5.
Boom.
Yeah. And number 4 is Immortal X-Men issue 5. So it's actually kind of funny how just consistent this is, where it's Batman, X-Men, Batman, X-Men.
Is it the 90s again? Is Spawn's out? Spawn's still doing well, I guess. Man.
I don't know. Number 5 is Flashpoint Beyond issue 4. So I don't know if that's John's name that's sort of carrying that to keep it as high as it is, or if it's...
Maybe people are ironically reading it. I don't know. But they're buying it. So
maybe if people just care about Flashpoint. I know comics fans on the internet don't and actively shit on it, but maybe
I mean, my shop had quite a few, so they're ordering them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Maybe they're selling. Maybe it's the sort of thing that people who have pull lists get, but a lot of people who walk in and just get things off the shelf buy it.
Right.
That makes some sense.
Oh, well, what's this book with Batman doing the Vitruvian Man? I'll pick that up.
Aye. Number 6 is Legion of X issue 4. So
another X book.
Yeah, and you could argue Flashpoint Beyond is kind of a Batman book. So
yeah.
we're still.
As we found out in the Zero, it is not a Flash book.
Number 7 is Batman White Knight Presents Red Hood.
Ooh. Wow. Shocked, I tell you, shocked.
Those are still selling well, to be fair. I'm not too surprised. Number 8 is Mighty Morphin issue 22. It's the second ongoing Power Rangers book. I think I actually saw this week some people were talking about what this issue does, or maybe it's what the previous issue or one of the next issues is doing, but they're doing like a there was a show of one of the newer Power Rangers series that did like a thing where all the various Red Rangers of all the different generations came together. Apparently they're doing that for the Pink Ranger in the comic.
Oh, cool.
So,
I can only remember 2 Pink Rangers, and that's Kimberly and Kat.
Aye, the 2 Mighty Morphin ones.
Yes. I can't tell you the other pink ones. Red is, though, I can maybe try some.
I started watching during Zero. Yeah.
I kept going a little bit further, and then I came back during high school for like Dino Thunder because Tommy came back. And then there was another one. It's when they started rolling out like 3 Rangers instead of 5 at the beginning, and then they'd have some join as it went on. I can't remember what that one was.
See, that was the thing. Like, if I see 3, I think VR Troopers first.
Yeah.
You know, that's where my mind goes. So,
but yeah, it was kind of, I think, when Disney took it over with the ABC family, they started popping up on there. They changed because it seemed like they weren't just using the Japanese footage like they were before. It was all stuff they had shot for the shows. So, but yeah.
Interesting. Number 9 is DC versus Vampires issue 8, and I'm pleasantly surprised that number 10 is the new champion of Shazam issue 1.
That's good. Yeah. I made sure to put that on the order. So I made sure I got mine. There was not a lot there at my shop, so the guy said someone came in and was like really excited for it. Someone they had never seen before. So, which is weird because you would think like a Shazam fan would be at the store, but I don't know.
DC got 5 out of the top 10 currently, which is cool. Nice and spread out as well. It's 1, 2, 5, 9, and 10. So, and then DC got number 11 as well. Killing Time just out of the top 10
nice.
There. Poison Ivy's at number 15. Sword of Azrael is at 16. I am gobsmacked that's higher than number 40, but I'll.
Yeah, that was one that I wish I could have read because they were teasing online. Someone hit up Ram V and was like, "Hey, are you gonna ever do anything with that father?" I can't remember his name, but he popped up in Catwoman, because he was with the Order of Saint Dumas, and he tagged Dan Waters with the eye emojis. So I was like, "Oh, if that character's gonna show up, I might want to read that book." But on a week like this, it was just too busy.
Yeah. Aquaman Andromeda is a couple of slots down at number 18, and then Batman Beyond Neo Years at 19. So, most of DC's books, fit in comfortably into the top 20. The only ones that didn't make it in there were Multiversity Teen Justice and Black Adam, the Justice Society Files issue that's out. So, not a bad week performance-wise, at least comparative to other books. Anyway, on Comixology. So, cool. But yeah. But yes, there you go. That is the top 10. So I said repeatedly before we started that there was not really any news this week, but of course I was kind of neglecting the movie news in my head when I said that. Because
when you say news, I always think comic book news because there is going to be something stupid that Warner Brothers has done for us to talk about.
I mean, this week in particularly, more stupid than usual. They've scrapped the Batgirl movie, which has already been shot. There's still post-production to do on it, presumably. Still some FX shots and whatever, but they were doing test screenings and whatnot. And they've decided to just can it, shelf it, and never release it. That's what they're saying right now. It won't be released on any platform in any capacity. Now, this feels like the sort of thing that in 20, 30 years, they're eventually, like, when there's a new regime, will say, we'll put it out as like a special, like, we'll unearth the film that never got released as an extra somewhere. But yeah, at least for the time being, it's not coming out. And it's kind of wild. There's a lot of like businessy reasons being touted as to why they're doing this. But
yeah,
what's weird about it is, even if it was terrible, and by all accounts, it sounds like it's just kind of in the middle. It's not really that great, not that bad, it's whatever.
So a Warner Brothers movie at this point.
But even if it is terrible, right, and even if they're, and honestly, the logic behind some of what they're saying is not that bad either. This idea that they want to protect DC as a brand, they want to keep it up to a certain standard of quality, they want to sort of curate it a little bit. That is a good idea, but pretty much every movie studio in the history of the movie business will still release their turd, even if they know it's a turd, just to recoup what costs they can, and then they'll do their new plan. And then they'll, like, put their new plan into action,
I went to the theater to see Eternals, so yes, they still put them out.
I was thinking more Suicide Squad 2016 to keep it DC focused, but
yeah, but still, I gotta take my digs where I can. So, but yeah, or like Suicide Squad. So, like, man, it's just frustrating because the new merger going so hard on Max, where it felt like dropping Batgirl on Max is something that would be cool. Like, if it hits, cool. If it doesn't, it's fine, because the way that Max was set up. But now it seems like, I don't know, it seems like they're purging, because it wasn't just like Batgirl getting canned, but like they went through and removed a lot of like Max original movies. So like, I know I hadn't watched it, but that Seth Rogen one where he plays an old, a guy from old times that gets pickled, and it's a man out of time story, just gone. They pulled that one. Which is just,
when you say gets pickled, what do you mean?
He falls into a pickle like thing, gets preserved, and gets woken up in modern times.
I thought that's kind of what you were getting at, but I just wanted to check.
He gets pickled, and then he comes back, Captain America style, man out of time, and hilarity ensues. I never got around to watching it, but by all accounts, it had heavy critical acclaim, and they all said it was a different side of Seth Rogen, and it's gone now. And I went and I double checked, and it's not in my queue anymore on Max. So
interesting. So the pair who were directing Batgirl had done some work on the Miss Marvel show, which inherently actually makes it like, maybe it would have been all right, actually, because some of the, like, I think Miss Marvel is really bad in the middle. I think the script, there's the story, and the villains that they introduce in the middle are really shit. But the direction and there's some other stuff about it that is good. And Brendan Fraser was going to be Firefly in the Batgirl movie, so maybe that'd have been fun.
Yeah. The news of this getting canceled and Blast of the Past popping up on Hulu made me, put me in a Brendan Fraser mood. So, I watched Blast from the Past, and I was like, God damn, why wasn't Brendan Fraser a bigger deal? And then you remember all the bad stuff that's happened to him. And you're just like, God damn, man, this might have been part of his comeback. And that was robbed from us.
So, I'll just say, like, if there's anything you like that is technically a HBO Max show or movie, I would say it is on notice, and it might not be around for very long, given all these decisions that are getting made.
Yeah.
James Gunn's saying that Peacemaker Season 2 is safe, but that doesn't mean that anything else is. So.
Yeah, but that's not a Max original, right? That airs on HBO? No,
it's just Max.
Really?
Yeah, that's a Max show.
Oh, shoot. Okay, well, I mean, I'm sure that did well enough, right? That they see the money in it.
Well, I think it's just because they've already probably started production on it or whatever, and it's already moving. And it might even just be because they want James Gunn to keep coming back for more movies, so they want to keep him happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's the thing about the Batgirl thing is, like, I would want to see for myself if it was good or bad, right? Like, because I like a lot of stuff that's not, the best. But it was still,
I'm well aware.
Yeah, so, like, I don't know, the fact that they decided that it wasn't up to standard or whatever, and then just canned it, and we'll never get a chance to see it, is a bummer.
Yeah. I've got a feeling that someday, somehow, it will see the light of day, but,
Yeah.
But it'll be a long time from now.
I read a tweet from a friend that was like, if this was the 90s, the Batgirl bootleg Would that'd be for sale on all comic book cons?
Yeah, I was having a chuckle at myself that, you know, Aslov, who's in charge now after this Warner Discovery kind of merger thing, is, I was thinking, if he was the one in charge when everyone was saying release the Snyder cut, like he's canning films that have been shot and like make no sense to not release. You think he's going to put effort into finishing that? I don't know. The thought crossed my mind that there might have. It's amusing to think about.
Did I have a fever dream and see that there's a Todd Phillips Joker sequel being created?
With Lady Gaga playing Harley Quinn, and it's also a musical. Yes, you might have seen that.
So like no Batgirl, but we get that. Those are the type of decisions that drive me nuts. You know?
I mean, from a business perspective, that movie did make $1 billion, so I understand why financially they're pursuing it. But I hated that first Joker movie. Like, you know, I did not like it at all.
I didn't hate it. I just didn't get why everybody loved it. You know, it wasn't.
I don't like musicals as well, so you know, you take more of that Joker, you put musical into it. Like you're making something that's just perfect for me to avoid.
I didn't get why everybody loved Joaquin in it, because I wanted to hit him with a hammer, and I don't know what that says about me, but like maybe I just don't like Joker at the end of the day.
I like a good Joker, but you know, Jared Leto, when he's got his turn.
I don't know if you run in the same circles as I do, but I got a clip on Twitter of or maybe it was TikTok, I can't remember, that the Teen Titans Go show was taking the piss out of the Joker, out of Leto's Joker. So the Teen Titans had to try to get into Joker's lair, so all of them are doing impressions, and so like Cyborg does Nicholson's, and then Beast Boy does Heath's, and then Robin comes through as Leto's. And the guy running the door doesn't believe, because it's like a video screen. He's like, "Oh no, that's not Joker. No, Joker would never have face tattoos. Joker doesn't talk like that." It was very funny.
No, I didn't see this.
Yes.
The other thing I would say here is that they're adamant right now that they're still releasing this Flash movie, but I want to make it clear that right now I'm putting my reputation on the line.
Yes.
I do not believe that this Ezra Miller Flash movie will ever be released, at least without it being heavily reshot. Because Ezra Miller is doing so much weird shit right now, and it keeps escalating, that I just do not believe it's ever actually going to happen. I mean, they're already talking about delaying the couple that are before that. Now, Shazam was probably always going to get pushed because it was on the same week as Avatar 2, and they were kind of kidding themselves that they were going to keep it there.
Yeah.
But they're talking about delaying those two now as well. I know they've done some reshoots with Aquaman 2 to put Affleck in it instead of Keaton, because... And... Part of it's because apparently like people were confused. Why is Keaton's Batman here? Shouldn't it be Affleck's?
I mean that is fair, because even to us, I'm like, wait, why would Keaton's be there?
Well, apparently, the Flash movie was meant to come first, and it's I think by the end of the Flash movie, it's supposed to have reset things so that Keaton's the Batman, which is weird because we're not gonna get a Keaton Batman movie.
Right. Well, we're not now.
But yeah, still. In fact, Keaton was in the Batgirl movie. He was in like 5 scenes apparently, going from the Twitter leaks. Because people who like knew stuff about the movie were just sort of revealing it because like, well, there's no point in hiding it now. Like it's not coming out.
And apparently he was more like Batman Beyond Bruce, to where he was older and just like pissy. And I was like, God, I want to see Keaton in that role. And yeah.
See, I wasn't that looking forward to the Batgirl movie, and if anything, I'm actually kind of happy in a sense that DC and Warner Brothers have made me so apathetic to their movie like adaptations of DC characters that I can just kind of like enjoy the chaos of this now and talk about it rather than being upset that certain things have been cancelled or ignored or whatever. But obviously, like everyone's like, why aren't HBO Max doing a Blue Beetle movie with Jaime Reyes? Like, is that like? I mean, they were shooting that already because there was definitely a production fault was going around. So, like, I wouldn't count your chickens on that one either. Like, that feels like that could easily go away in the night.
Maybe they want to put some distance in between the whole, Snyderverse stuff and the newer stuff. I don't know, but I mean, Suicide Squad, the James Gunn's did pretty well. I mean, we got Peacemaker out of that, right? Like, and it was pretty well received.
Joe, the impression I'm getting is that they want to start fresh, and Reeves' Batman's probably separate from this because it was so separate anyway. But all of these things that have got loose connections to that like shared universe from before, it kind of feels like this new regime is begrudgingly maybe going to release some of it and just get it out the way, but really they're looking to what's coming after because they want to probably just start fresh.
And that does make sense, like, again, from a business point of view, but as a fan point of view, if you're looking forward to some of these, you know, but like, I'm sure Black Adam's fine, even though I'm not looking forward to it as much, but like,
it looks pretty
The Rock
bad.
Well, The Rock still sells tickets though, right? Like,
sure, the trailers have not been.
No, good. I'm so bummed by that because I love Dwayne. Like, and he's a legit movie star.
And the Shazam 2 trailers, like, it's fine, but it doesn't look like, you know, it's like, it looks like more of the first one. And I know I enjoyed it for what it was, but you know, there was nothing exciting about it. I'm not hyped for it.
I'm not hyped, but I would have been there on Friday night to go see it, you know, like, because I just love that world. And I think Zach Levi is pretty damn good as Shazam. So,
well, you might get to see that in like March. Maybe you'll get to see it in the summer next year, or maybe it'll be later. I mean, we'll see what they do with it.
Man, them kids are going to be as old as Shazam by the time that comes out.
Oh yeah, if they do a premiere, we're going to see them walking down the carpet, and it'll be like, wait, who's that guy? Who's that guy? Who's that chick? oh, it's the kids. They're like 30 now. Yep. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Cast them in Riverdale. The kids will be teenagers.
Zachary Levi is going to have a walking stick. He's going to be shuffling down the red carpet. I remember when I shot this movie in my 40s.
I watched a kind of bad horror movie with him in it that was on Amazon, where he played himself. That was pretty funny. It was the Rooster Teeth one. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
And I am not, no.
Yeah, so he pops up for a minute. I was like, oh, cool, Zach Levi. But yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I mean, there's probably more to talk about this if we wanted to, but I think we'll move on and get into the books. But yeah, so the DC movie turmoil, it's all a bit of a shit show. It's really how I'd sum it up. And yeah, I know, because I was talking to Carr about it a little bit in TV news, because obviously it affected some TV stuff on HBO Max, and he's got this, I mean, this is not a surprise to anyone, I'm sure, but he has the same general feeling of apathy right now as far as the DC movies go, so
that's just his aura, though.
Yeah. But, you know, this is a DC podcast. We should be excited for the movies coming out, and they've drummed it out of us.
They've robbed it, yeah. So well, that's how I'm feeling. Like, people are saying, "Is this the death of the superhero movie?" And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I'm sure
the Marvel movies are still making too much money for it to be.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But like the excitement, because even me, I'm not that excited over. Like, I was excited for Thor, but I'm a Thor nerd, like, of course. But like the next whatever the next,
like, Phase 5 slate.
Yeah, like, I just look at that and I'm just like, okay, like, cool. Like, I'll see them, but I'm not like at the age of, even Wakanda Forever, which I did like the first Black Panther, but even then, like, no amount of Namor gets me excited to go see that. Now,
Namor's never going to get me excited for anything.
No. You know what gets Daddy Magic Snipples hard? M'Baku as the Black Panther. If that happens, you know, I don't think it's happening. So, but which, by the way, that line almost killed my wife watching Dynamite the other day.
I'm sure it did.
Yes, Daddy Magic and his Coke eyes.
Oh dear, what a taste! All right,
yes.
Let's get into the comics, shall we?
Yeah.
Dark Crisis issue 3, or if you prefer, Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 3. Joshua Williamson writing with Daniel Sampere on the art. So obviously the Titans are reeling from the big attack. You know, Beast Boy's not looking so hot.
No,
to put it mildly. The trauma of what he went through might have caused some trouble. Honestly, the first page of this was giving me Doomsday Clock vibes, and I think it was intentional, because they went for the 9-panel grid. You know, the narration as we're seeing people protest. It was hard not to think of Doomsday Clock a little bit. But yeah, so the Titans are all kind of upset, and obviously there's some other characters there. You know, Dick's there, Babs is there, Steph and Cass are there, along with the remaining Titans. You know, it's setting up, like, okay, this other Justice League is formed, and they're feeling kind of weird about it because it's Black Adam who's leading this team, and we see him try to train the other heroes, but it's not really going very well. I mean, he basically abandons them within a couple of pages of this comic.
Yeah, he's it's almost like the totalitarian leader of a country isn't a great mentor, right?
Mm.
Like, Yeah, because they are trying. You see like Aqualad and Supergirl and Doctor Light. Harley's in space with Killer Frost for a fun, like, but like they're doing their best, and he just, it's still not enough because he still wants the lethal option, right? And that's what he tells them. None of this is going to resolve until you can do what you're not supposed to.
It leads to a pretty heated exchange between, because he's got Count Vertigo at the throat, and he wants to kill him. And John steps in, fires up his eyes and is like, stop. But it's a really good panel, actually. The expression and the anger in his face and all that. But Yara ends up helping, and it's actually a really nice touch when the others leave because they all want to go back and check on their families and their home lives and whatever. The three that are left on the stairs are John, Damien, and Yara, which very notably is a young Trinity.
Yeah.
It's the Superman, the Batman, and the Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So
it's so good, and I like the whole Yara stuff where she was like, she wants to help, but she didn't think joining a Justice League would be the way to help until she saw everything unfolding, and then she's kind of like, well, they do need my help. The line that got me here was Damien saying that like Black Adam's right. It was just the way that he was going about it that Damien kind of disagreed with. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that's Damien for you. Right?
Yeah. And I assume the way this scene ended also made Daddy Magic's nipples hard.
Yeah, you have no idea. So I took to Twitter after I read this, and I had said, like, for all of his flaws lately with John's, right? John still got me into comics, and it was moments like this to where, like, Williamson has learned how to write for the splash page, and so you get to, the sorry to interrupt. But if there's no Justice League and you turn the page and it's the Society in all their glory and you're looking up at them so they seem even bigger. Such a good moment.
You got Alan and his kids, you got Fate, you got Terrific, you got Wildcat, Our Man,
the Hawks.
Midnight, all the people you expect. Obviously Jay's not there because he's away with the other Flashes right now.
Right.
But you got the rest of the squad.
Yeah, we have 2 Wildcats, which I think is always cool when they do the legacy thing like that with the 2 kinds on one.
Jakeem's there as well, yeah.
Yeah, Jakeem's hanging out. Yeah.
So it's a really good. I think if you care about DC lore and you care about, if you cared about the JSA coming back, this is probably the first time it's actually felt like they're the JSA. Obviously, they were in. The minis that Williamson did sort of building up to this, but this kind of felt like, oh no, they're together, they're a team, and they're here to offer their services as such.
Yep.
So that's pretty exciting. Then we go to Deathstroke, who is dealing with
straight up not having a good time. Deathstroke's dealing with some things.
I mean, he's got the infinite darkness or whatever it is in his head, talking to him, spurring him on, but he thinks he can sort of do what he wants, in spite of it. And you have Ravager. Rose comes in and she wants to talk to him, and basically try to figure out why he's doing this. And obviously we know why he's doing it because he's infected with the darkness.
Right,
but
the darkness.
He's going all nuts, and he actually ends up releasing the darkness out of his mouth. Then it sort of goes to the other villains that he's with in the room. It seems like Rose is just reacting to it rather than being hit by it herself.
Yeah,
but important to know.
Yeah, no, I do like the when Rose shows up, and because she was there for the whole respawn thing, and she thinks this is tied to that because she doesn't realize he's been infected. But the way that they kept his eyes in shadow, I was like, is he gonna be missing both eyes? Like, is this one of those things where the darkness has caused him mad? But no. But I wasn't also expecting him to puke it all up either. So either way, it was horrific.
Yeah, and basically what he's trying to do on behalf of the darkness is to start a crisis. That's kind of what his goal is. So, yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But, it's interesting to see him tied into all this stuff. Then we cut to the Green Lanterns. Obviously, we saw Hal and Co. break out Kyle, where he was at the end of last issue. Here, they've went to Sector 666, and there's a giant black lantern which is formed here. And Hal, Joe, and Kyle are going to check it out, go inside, and we get this really fun kind of Black Lantern style page where we see them all looking sort of evil and dead as they're falling through. It's just trippy page. Yeah,
except for Hal, who's doing the parallax greed thing. With
with all the rings,
but with the Black Lantern rings. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they're all Black Lantern rings on his hand, as opposed to one of every.
The yellows.
Yeah. So when they fall to wherever they're in here, this is where Pariah's hiding.
Yeah.
And he's got all these little worlds, these little universes, and they've got logos on them. So one's clearly the planet, the world that he's got Superman trapped in. One's where the Flash is, Wonder Woman, so on. Right. And this basically, we find out that he obviously wants to rebuild the multiverse, and even though the darkness wants him to do one thing, he thinks he can subdue it and control it and just do what he wants. So that's what he's actually trying to do. He's not trying to do what the darkness wants. But the Green Lantern's trying to fight him, and effectively Hal gets dusted just like the Justice League did. He gets the same treatment where he vaporizes and then reforms, and he's inside presumably a new world. And it's this Green Lantern world where there's like a blind Green Lantern in front of him. There's like a ninja looking one, and it's Sector John Stewart.
Yeah.
Which
it's a little bit weird.
Well, I wonder if he's put him in the same like fake universe as John's in, because we've not seen John in a universe yet.
No. So what happened was that Hal runs and touches the Green Lantern orb.
Yes.
And the Earth, and that's when Pariah freaks out. He's like, "Don't touch my worlds." And so it's almost like Pariah is trying to use each of these basically by giving the Justice League what they want. He's creating these infinite worlds. And so it's almost like if he gets pissed that if Hal goes up there, it's going to awaken John or pull him out.
Yeah, but he seems to go in, right?
He goes into there. But I also like the homage to the original Crisis, where when he gets dusted, it looks like when the Flash died in that original Crisis. And then he reforms to where he's at in this gigantic green world where everything looks like a construct.
Yeah, all the buildings are all the constructs. The helipad that he's on is a construct. Everything's a construct. Yep. Yeah. So that's your cliffhanger there. But the end of the issue, and what's interesting about this is it really feels like an event, and that each thing only gets one scene to kind of advance. But the ending is Black Adam arriving somewhere, and he's like, "Look, I tried to fix this with the young heroes. I thought I could train them, but they're too tied to hope. They're too ingrained in hope." So it's time for Doom. And the final page is, again, much like the JSA page, we get the splash page of the Legion of Doom, which now includes Punchline, who's rising in the ranks as far as DC villains goes. They're really trying to make her one of the big guys, aren't they?
What happened to Joker in the Joker book? Is he just on vacation still?
Oh, I never finished that, did I?
Okay. Yeah, so that's why I'm assuming they're there. But also, curiously, is Vandal Savage, who the last time I saw him, he was in that group post, what was the last big event? Where was it? Death Metal?
Death Metal, yeah.
Where it was him and Terrific and Talia, and there was all this uneasy alliance to make sure stuff like this can't happen. It seems like he's bailed on that and is now joining Luthor's Legion of Doom again, which also now includes the Rogues, including Golden Glider, and Scarecrow.
Yeah.
So, which again is a nice tie where I feel like Williamson, however this story came together, Williamson has been paying attention to the DC universe as it goes, and the fact that he's tying in Snyder's era of the Justice versus Doom and that whole idea.
And even just this Scarecrow is it's the modern Scarecrow from Tynion's Batman run.
From Tynion's run, yeah. So with the whole Fear State ideal.
And it does say, it says next time, Deathstroke versus Legion of Doom, so it is quite interesting. This is not a new concept, obviously many events have done this, but the idea that the team of villains are going to try and take on the main threat, and presumably fail, because it's only going to be issue 4 out of 7, so we'll see how it goes, but I thought this was a very solid event issue comic, and what I mean by that is that I don't think it's ever going to win any awards, I don't think it's ever going to feel special, but all the character interactions felt good, and they had these big splash page moments they built up to, both the JSA and the Legion of Doom at the end. I thought everything advanced something in a meaningful way, and I'm liking all the various threads that it's doing. As a piece of pulpy event comic, I had a good time with the issue. Yeah,
and it has these nice big moments too. Like it's where the last one, I feel like, if I remember right, Connor was saying that it wasn't moving fast enough, right? They were getting too many of these character moments. I feel like those character moments really led to these big, like the Justice Society showing up, and Black Adam seeking out the Legion of Doom. Like that, those are nice. It's a nice balance, right? Like the light side gets the society, the dark side gets the, not the dark side, but you know what I mean. Gets the Legion of Doom, and it all balances itself out very, very well. So yeah, no, I agree. It's really good. It's not like amazing outside of that Justice Society page, right? I totally nerded out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just solid. I think is how I'd put it, and the art's reasonably good. I think
It's Sampere drawing everybody, which
Yeah.
I'm never gonna be mad at.
I think the splash pages look good. I think the moment where John stands up to Black Adam, I think that looks really good. And you see the anger on his face. There's those moments like that. Even the opening where the Titans are all kind of like, they're all really kind of subdued, and there's a real kind of like, sadness in the air. Like that stuff is it all captured fairly well. So I think it's a really solid event issue of a comic book. It's just never, I think, going to be like ranking high up in single issues of a year or anything like that. But so but I'm enjoying it. I'm sure Connor hated it.
Yeah, but again, his aura is Doom.
His aura is Ginger.
Yes.
All right, what are you rating Dark Crisis issue 3?
I'm gonna give it an 8.
Yeah, I'll agree with a straight 8. I got a good time. So, there you go. Batman issue 126. Chip Zdarsky writing with Jorge Jimenez on the art. So, last issue ended with the reveal of the robot coming out of the cave, the failsafe. And this issue, of course, starts off with a little bit of Batman kind of just, talking about his family, talking about how he's different from them, how we get this page of all the different colors, which is kind of nice, where it's them, they are all too hopeful to have lives and loved ones, where Batman's already accepted that he's not going to have that, and that's what makes them different from him. But he has a small conversation with Tim, because Tim's still getting involved with things, and Batman feels that he should be taking some time off. But ultimately, it's very quickly in the issue where this robot shows up behind them, very Terminator-esque, which you said may happen.
Yep.
And I did enjoy that element. Do you know what? I would say I really enjoyed this issue, but I will say the final page did throw me for a bit of a loop.
So let's build to that.
Yeah.
Right? So, because I'm also doing homework on this, because it's been a while since that concept's been used.
Sure.
And I want to make sure I get the greater stuff right.
Well, here's the interesting thing. So that first page where the robot shows up and he's in the darkness behind him, fantastic, right? The red lights, feeling very Terminator-esque, love it. And then, there's a big fight takes place where Batman's trying to fight it, and then eventually he grapples onto the Batmobile and tries to get away, and then all the Bat family show up to try and help. And it really feels like this thing is like unstoppable and coming after him. And what stuck out to me, though, is that he didn't seem to recognize it, at least not at first. He was kind of like, he's like, oh, this thing's dangerous, it's powerful, it's smart, it's adapting, it's all this stuff. I particularly like the moment where he tries to get away again and he tries to grapple and go up, but the robot grabs his cape, and there's that moment where he sees his reaction, his face is like, oh shit, and he gets slammed into the concrete. Like, a really good sequence moment there, I think.
That, and then when he gets away on with the Batmobile, because he uses it as like a lure, right? He's able to send the car out and then get behind it to distract the robot or the failsafe. But yeah, also, again, this is why I love Chip, is that, or this could have been Jimenez, because he's a great designer, but the failsafe has bat ears, and that cracked me up. Because of course a robot created by Batman has the bat ears.
Yeah. So not long after he gets slammed into the concrete, that's when Steph and Cash show up to try and help. And yeah, this robot's like taking them out easily, but isn't killing them. And this is kind of this weird moment where Batman kind of notices that this thing only cares about dealing with him. Like, it's, when someone else is hitting it, it'll sort of like shoo them to the side, it'll deal with them, but it's not, it doesn't care about the others, it only cares about him. So Tim actually grabs Bruce, puts him in the Batmobile and tries to drive away. And honestly, my boy Nightwing gets probably the best entrance of the whole book. He shows up, he's a little bit late, he shows up on his bike and he rides his bike over the Batmobile and lets his bike fly. There's a backflip off of it and lets the bike fly into the robot.
He turns it into a missile.
It's wonderful. Yeah. It's wonderful. So yeah, but of course the robot jumps up and does a big shockwave attack, ground pound kind of thing, and like the others just can't keep up with it. But Batman's actually tricked it, because Batman, on his way, like I think Tim's saying, "Oh, we need to get to the cave," and the robot hears the cave, but it turns out he goes to the old cave and not the one that Leslie's actually waiting at to like give him medical attention. So, like the robot sees Leslie, and what it says? Just sort of says, where is he? Yeah, he's just sort of like, so he's diverted the robot quite effectively, and like it's like Batman's finally starting to remember that this is something to do with him.
Yeah.
And he's going into this secret part of the cave. He takes off his cowl and his cape, and he finds this box. And I'm like, and what I was thinking at this point, I'm like, did he like intentionally erase his memory of creating this, because that would defeat the purpose if he knew it was there to come after him?
Right.
That's what I was thinking. And then of course he's building up in the narration. He says, "I've done this to myself," and then Tim looks around. You see the purple glove, and I thought, oh, has he put on his original costume? I was thinking, the Detective 27 purple gloves costume.
He's got to return back to his roots to remind himself, why this failsafe exists. And I was so wrong.
And then the final page, I was also wrong. He walks out in the Batman of Zur-En-Ra, or Zur-En-Ar, whatever you like.
Zur-En-Ar.
Yeah, the purple, red, yellow costume. This, which I mainly associate from Grant Morrison's run, is where I kind of really knew about it from. But so yeah, this is something that the Batman of Zur-En-Ra is done. The failsafe, not regular Bruce.
No, so Zur-En-Ar exists. So when Morrison brought it back, so this is what I had to refresh.
Yes,
was like, this is like primal Batman. This is, if anything ever happened to Batman, this is the last ditch effort. If anything happens to Bruce's mind, Zur-En-Ar will take over and make sure that Batman exists. So essentially Zur-En-Ar is Batman without Bruce. And so it seems like the Zur-En-Ar version of him created this failsafe in case Batman had went too far. And so now it's like this multi-level thing that, like, Bruce did create failsafe, but it wasn't really Bruce because it was Batman. So Batman created the failsafe, but then didn't tell Bruce about it. So it's this whole thing, and I'm just like, oh man, Zur-En-Ar is always a trip, always. So I have a feeling Bat might be showing up at some point.
I'm so conflicted on this, because on the one hand, like, I loved the issue up till the end, and just as a sort of Terminator robot hunting Batman, I really enjoyed all that stuff. All the Bat family getting involved, loved it. The final page, like, I'm conflicted, because on the one hand, I think that this might just mess up what I like about the story. On the other hand, though, I do appreciate that Zdarsky is willing to just pull from anything in Bat history and do something with it. Like, I kind of appreciate the balls of it. I'm not so sure if I like it yet. We'll see what he does with it next issue.
Yeah, when Zur-En-Ar shows up, things are going to go sideways, right? Like, that's always that's the thing that I got from Morrison, which he had pulled from an older story where, like, Zur-En-Ar was like kind of like a Bizarro. He was a scientist from another and it's called From the Superman of Planet X, from Batman 113. The story of Batman from Zur-En-Ar brings that would become Earth 1 Batman to his planet to help him battle giant robots piloted by an unidentified alien race. While on the planet, Batman's found he's developed Superman-like powers. So the whole concept of Zur-En-Ar by itself is just wild. So the fact that Morrison repurposed it as kind of its own failsafe, I do like Zdarsky using that in for this story to do something new with it. But yeah, we'll see how it goes, because it can be contingent on how Zur-En-Ar Batman.
Whether I like where this goes is entirely dependent on just that. Like, I mean, I enjoyed this issue a lot. I liked how the action was written. I thought the art was glorious, repeatedly throughout, both in the sequencing and just sort of the actual line work, and the Nightwing's entrance is phenomenal. Batman being grabbed and slammed into the concrete. The robot's first appearance over Bruce's shoulder. And yeah, the art in the final page. I'm conflicted about the concept, but the art is gorgeous.
He is menacing.
Yeah,
like that purple cape looks scary. But yeah, pretty good. I mean, Zdarsky seems to be having fun between this and the Night, the Night took a couple issues for me to fully buy in as well. But he takes his time, and again, like the art is pretty good. The other thing is, Tim's Robin seems super super young. It might just be the haircut. Like it's a weird like high fade.
I think it's. I wonder if it's a weird thing where because Damien's not around, like he inherently is the youngest one, so that's just kind of what they lead into.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not bad. It's just weird because like especially on that last page when he looks like teenage Tim Drake, and at this point, Tim should be in like what, college age, right? Like he went off to college and
but 20, tech. Something like that.
Yeah, so but other than that, I think the art's good. Like you said, the robot showing up behind Bruce, Dick's entrance to everything. That first page where we see all of the Bat family from behind, as they're going out to help Batman is pretty good.
Yeah, no. What to like in here? I liked him more than issue 1 of the run. I mean,
okay.
By that I mean issue 125.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, I mean, if nothing else, like, I'm concerned I won't like where it goes with the Zura and Ra stuff because I don't necessarily know if I liked it in the past, but at the very least, I'm intrigued, and I liked all the issue up until that point, so, I mean, I can't really fault much of it.
Yeah. It's one of those weird things. Like, I gotta see where it goes before, because he could fall on his face, and Xernar could be, like, the Bat God personified, and I'm gonna hate it. But it could just be like a King Kong versus Godzilla moment of Xernar versus the failsafe,
that fight may be entertaining. Yeah, I can't deny it. All right. Well, what are you giving Batman 126?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
I'm gonna give it a straight. Yeah, right. I still thought it was really good. I guess I really enjoyed the book. The ending's just leaving me question like if I like where it's going, but I have no reason to really doubt Zdarsky at this point, really. Oh. So, we'll see. But that's Batman 126. The new champion of Shazam, issue 1, Josie Campbell writing with Doc Shaner on the art, and this is in continuity, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. I wasn't sure what it was going to do, but
so I really like the concept of Shazam, especially once I got really into Shazam around the Justice Society era, right? And then like I had read like the Trials of Shazam where they tried to put it on Freddy, and Billy was the new wizard character that was trapped on the Rock of Eternity. And so I do like that they try to do Legacy. And then with New 52, we have the whole new origin where he could share it with the whole family. And so just the idea of Mary taking over and being this new champion was something that I'm in. And then you're going to put Doc Shaner on art. And yeah.
Oh, yeah, the art's I mean, that's the first thing you can see easily, is that the art is gorgeous.
And just the idea, too, that we're going to have Mary, at least for 4 issues, becoming the new Shazam, as I just love that whole idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's saying continuity. It's she's now college age, so she's actually leaving. And there's a really sad little scene. It's on the very first. Is it? That's not the first page, is it?
No, it's so there's and also here where she talks about like she always felt unwanted, right? And I do like that because now it.
Yeah. No, what I was getting to is it's on the third page when she's leaving, and Darla like it's like, oh, she's still asleep, but she's not, and she's like she's crying because her sister's leaving. Yeah, that was really sweet. But it mentions because of what happened in that Shazam crossover thing that we didn't read. Like Billy's in the Rock and all the powers gone, right? None of them have powers anymore. So she's going off to be a normal college girl. She's going to go and be herself and just like not be an orphan anymore. She's happy she found a family eventually, but this is her chance to not be the sister, not be the orphan, not be whatever. Just be her.
Just be Mary. Yeah.
So she goes away. She's going to college in New York. Obviously, then they're from Philadelphia. So she says it's like an 8-hour drive, which is just perfect because it's not too far away. She can't visit, but it's far away enough that she's separate and gets to be alone and all the rest of it. And yeah, once she actually goes into the dorms and she meets her roommates and like she starts to feel concerned that they already know each other because they've been talking online because there was like a virtual meetup for new roommates and stuff, but she never got to do that. Like, her insecurities and her like sort of getting worried and stuff was like, okay, she's got a good inner voice, we're starting to get this sense of humor, and like, when they ask her name and she sort of panics and says Marina, because she wants to be different from just Mary.
Marina, and the girls look at her confused, her new roommates, but and then just her face turning red and the whole panel is red.
Yeah, but then
nice touch.
But then when they say it's cool, and you get that wide panel at the bottom where it's like rays of sunshine behind her head as she's smiling. It's very expressive. It's also those extra just like turning the panels whole colors just adds comedy to it. It just makes it funnier.
Comedy, and it makes it like kinetic to where it's almost like a cartoon. Like I don't want to say cartoony in the way that it's like overblown or whatever, but I feel the motion. It's almost like reading storyboards here. And again, that's Shaner doing the expressions and the working with. Did he do the colors on this too?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, hold on.
I have to go back to the credits page. But they go to an orientation talk, and the bunny that belongs to one of her roommates starts talking to her.
Yeah.
Basically says, "Yeah, I've been sent here with a message from Billy. He's given you the Shazam power. It's all yours now. You're not sharing it with anyone. The world needs a champion, and it's going to be you." And she's like, "No, I'm done. Like I'm a normal person now. I can't do this." And she ends up making a bit of a scene talking to the rabbit and runs out with it. And the
he's talking to her in her mind, but she's talking out loud, so everyone just sees her screaming at a rabbit, which is hilarious.
But then when she runs outside, the bunny teleports her to a crime. There's a bank robbery going on with it's not Weather Wizard, because that's what she calls him, because she doesn't know what it is.
Disaster Master,
which is not a bad name, to be honest.
No, but he has the kind of seeming like Weather Wizard ish powers, where it seems like he's earthquake powered, or
I got a kick out of it though, because his powers seem to come from a phone app that he's got. Yep. He's got a phone strapped to his chest, and I give me a bit of a chuckle. But yeah, he's throwing the vault doors around. He's threatening to kill everyone. So the bunny begs Mary to say the word, and of course, a full page spread says Shazam. It's gorgeous, and she noticed that, hey, wait, I'm stronger than I was before. What's going on? And the bunny explains, well, you're not sharing the power with 5 people anymore, so it's all you. You've got all of it.
The kick, she realizes when she hits him with the lightning that the kick knocks her back out of the bank.
Yeah. She goes to the
nice
window.
Moment too.
So yeah, she de-escalates the situation. Some wonderful panels, because like he's like making all the dirt swirl up into like kind of a tornado around him, and she's able to come through. And there's some great moments of like just the light of the lightning bolt in her chest, kind of like glowing through the smoke or the dust and stuff like that. So good, yeah, a lot of really nice art, in the action as well. But it's, to be honest, Shaner, it's the vibrancy, but mainly the expressions and the way it handles faces for me that I love.
Yeah, so he did all the art. So I just went back to the credits page, and it just says art by Doc Shaner. So that's inking and coloring. So he's just doing it all, and it really shows.
Yeah, that's why it took some time, presumably, to get done. But even the rabbit, when after they've captured the bad guy, and the rabbit's giving her this a side eye with a smirk, saying, "See, I knew you could do it, Mary. The world needs you." And she's actually already run away. She's flying off back to the dorms. And it does that cool thing where she lands like behind the wall, and you hear the Shazam, and then she runs around in her normal clothes. The classic switcheroo, which is a comic book. It doesn't have to do it, but it does it anyway because it's fun. So she comes in, and there's some police officers, and she thinks that they've called the police on her because she ran away with their bunny.
Stole her roommate's bunny, Hoppy.
But the cliffhanger is that her foster parents have went missing, and that is the cliffhanger of the issue. Which I thought was a good cliffhanger. The whole idea that she's desperate to get away and be herself, but then they get into trouble, and then she has to save them in some capacity. It's kind of sweet. It's got some natural drama there.
I like the idea where she talks about how she wasn't really wanted, and then she got to the Vasquez's, which are her foster family, and then she had a family, and then they were all superheroes together, and now she's trying to distance herself to be her own person, yet it's pulling her back. And I do like that. Not that it's an inner conflict, because of course she's going to try to help out her family, but just the struggle of her wanting to be on her own and not be, tied everything to her past.
Yeah, and it's got that classic, reluctant hero thing where she doesn't really want to do it because she wants to focus on her life, but she's not going to not help people in need. She's not going to go look for foster parents because something bad's happened to them. She's going to. So
and the fact that it seems like Billy, which I don't fully trust this rabbit. I feel like there's more going on right? That
Oh,
it's an emissary from Billy and the Rocket Fraternity using the last of his magic and whatnot. But she still ended up with the power of Shazam, right? So, but just the whole idea of her being unwanted and now being chosen to save the world, per se. I like that balance. So, but yeah, no, knew I was gonna like this book. I wasn't familiar with the writer Josie Campbell, but if it's gonna be more like this for 4 issues, it might end up being high on the best of.
yeah.
By the end of the year.
Sadly, the only thing I'm upset about is that it's only 4 issues. Like,
Yeah.
I would love if this was a 12-issue book or whatever,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's going to be four. There'll be 4 tight issues, and we'll see what they do with it. Hopefully, if it does well, and if Shaner wants to with Campbell, maybe they'll do like a sequel mini or something down the line. But no, cool. What are you giving the new champion of Shazam?
9.5.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Straight up there. I'm going to be a little more reserved and go with a straight 9, but I do really like it. It has that feeling of the start of a run, which is a shame because it's not the start of a run, it's the start of a mini. But love the characterization. I love that she's getting some focus. I've always liked Mary Marvel, but I think ever since that Deceased mini, where she had that surprise appearance where it was like, oh shit, that was as cool as anything.
She was hidden in there amongst the regular people.
Yeah. And it wasn't until the word was said that you kind of realized, oh wait a minute, and it really elevated her, I think, in terms of what you can do with her in a comic book. And I'm glad that there's a series here to sort of do it in continuity and give her the spotlight a bit. So, 9 out of 10 from me. So there you go. It's the new champion of Shazam. Flashpoint Beyond, issue 4, Geoff Johns with Jeremy Adams and Tim Sheridan writing, with Xermanico and Mikel Janin on the art. Do you know what? 5 names.
What is this book?
I have to say 5 goddamn names when I do the credits for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, Flashpoint Beyond. Well, I mean, clearly, in the real world, Batman's done this, and he's been warned that it's getting close to breaking point and that this shouldn't be a thing. But we go into the story, and Thawne's body is investigated by Thomas, and he finds a bunch of clock gears inside of him. So he's like, okay, I need to do something with that, and he brings it home. Dent's son has ran away from Penguin. He's went into the Batcave and stole a bunch of supplies and made himself effectively a kind of a
Robin.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just a red t-shirt and a green, green trousers. But yeah, he's given himself a utility belt, and he's kind of this Robin here.
The little sociopath has picked up on all the bad things, and now he's gonna go make chaos somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. When Thomas gets home, Penguin's try to say sorry, and he's really concerned about where the kid might be, and Thomas could not give a shit.
No, you can tell this man lost his son early and never thought about kids again.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
But we see the kid sneaking into Arkham. He's on top of the van that's going in, like an action star. Whilst Thomas is looking at these gears and shit and trying to figure. He sort of puts enough of them back together, but then realizes eventually it's for the grandfather clock in the house. Yeah. But at Arkham is the big thing though, is that the kid is going into Arkham because he wants to see his mum. He wants to see Gilda, and it's like, oh no, that's a bad sign. And it starts intercutting between the scenes. There's a page where there's the 2 scenes are playing out in 2 columns next to each other in panels. But yeah, eventually he sees his mum. And what's a really neat trick here is that you kind of think that this other voice that's coming in occasionally is her. In the way that Two-Face would have a gravelly voice when he's speaking out of Two-Face. The other, the burn side, if you will. And there's a reveal though that that's not the case. That there's someone else talking. It's someone coming from the next cell through a hidden door, and it's just as Thomas is putting the pieces together, and he goes and puts this gear in the clock in the Wayne Manor, and it kind of all everything coalesces together. So which actually makes this probably the most focused and most concise issue, because everything is just kind of these 2 things coming together.
Yep.
But yeah, so Dexter meets who's there, and the way it kind of ramps up, it also sounds like this is also the Clockwork Killer to me.
Yeah, that's what I read too, and that's why when I said this is definitely a book, because like there's a lot going on here that's kind of unclear still, despite being so focused.
Yeah, but anyway, Martha Joker comes walking out this secret door in the cell. That's your cliffhanger for the in-universe part of the book. There's a little bit after, of course, with the Batman and the time stuff. But
I do like that Gilda does say, to get behind her. So the fact, she has the Two-Face thing going on, but she's not. She's at Arkham, but she, it doesn't feel like she's villainous. You know?
And of course, the reason why he suspects that he knows who the killer is, Thomas, is because this was a wedding gift, this clock, so this gear, it must be it must be Martha who is the killer, and because that's where the gear came from.
So the gear came from the clock's been broken forever.
Yeah.
As far back as he can remember. So, but yeah, and I like what Xermanico does with the art here is in the backgrounds. You get a lot of clock stuff, but as soon as Dexter gets his mom out, all of the panels start to get tilty.
Yeah.
And disjointed, and it really adds to this sense of everything is chaos. And then you get to that layout where they're all like that, and it's the 2-page, the double spread with the clock behind it, counting down to midnight, which is another, we got to talk about blue energy and all this other stuff. So it's another tie-in to Doomsday Clock, which I think is nice. Yeah,
because we come back into the real Earth, if you will. The snow globe that they're presumably in is starting to crack.
Yep.
And it's temporal energy. The kid calls it blue shift power. Says it's the most powerful force in the omniverse. So this is really serious business. So yeah, it seems to be like it's all exploding right at the end. And yep. So yeah, it says, you don't know everything about everything this time. You don't know the truth about your mum. That's the final line at the end. So, yeah, I wonder if this means Bruce is going to get to see Martha Joker and,
Yep.
Sort of get a taste
that's
of
what
that.
he means, right? Because he never knew Martha was the Joker. He just knew his dad was Dr. Batman.
I don't think so, yeah.
Yeah, so him having to go there because he says this blue shift power is when space meets time. So basically when the Omniverse, which was introduced in, what? Is that a Snyder thing or is that a Johns thing from Doomsday Clock? Because it was the metaverse, right?
Metaverse was Doomsday Clock, yeah.
So Omniverse must be the other one. But so the Omniverse runs in with hypertime. And so these are these two, very DC ideas. And it creates this blue Manhattan-esque energy. And yeah, so I would guess that he gets pulled into there. That's all I can think.
Yeah, I mean... I do wonder if the lesson for Batman in this is that, he's kind of trying to save his father because he's met this version of his father and thinks he's worth saving, but he doesn't realize that the wife, the Martha in this scenario, is this really effed up. This is a Martha that should never have existed. Right. That basically, and maybe learning that and realizing that's maybe ultimately what the story's going to be.
It's been forever since I read the Azzarello, the Flashpoint Batman book. But I thought he killed her at the end.
It did seem like she died at the end, so this is definitely a reveal that she's still alive here at the end.
She's still alive, and it could be from all these time fluctuations and Flashpoint not supposing to exist.
Don't get me wrong, I did roll my eyes a little bit that it's just their Joker who's the Clockwork Killer, because, it's a bit of an easy, obvious thing to do.
Yeah, I think there's more to it. I think it might not just be her. That might be more to it. Like she's working in conjunction with who's ever the Clockwork Killer. Because for her to kill Thawne, right? That's pretty big. Like she's kind of just a crazy person with a knife that kills people.
Yeah.
For her to kill a speedster that's a pretty big feat. So there might be, with the Time Masters being lost and this little guy with the hat, there's so much more I think going on behind the scenes, and we'll get to it. But yeah, no, this is definitely this book keeps getting crazy. So, but that page, Xermanico's art with the reveal of the Martha Joker.
If anything,
pretty damn good.
This might be the best straight up issue of this book, and in a way that's almost disappointing because it wasn't funny, unintentionally at any point.
Yeah. True.
So what I was starting to enjoy about this book, for all its faults, is what this issue didn't have, but it didn't have it because it was actually a better issue, which it's a weird conflicting feeling to have, but Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting from it. Anyway, what are you giving Flashpoint Beyond?
I'm gonna give it a 7.5, and a lot of that's on the strength of the art. So
Yeah, I'll give it a 7. I think I you know, I enjoyed it well enough, and I'm intrigued by what craziness might come in the last issue. But I did roll my eyes a little bit at Martha Joker, even though I really loved that in the original story. But she was supposed to be dead, so you know, it's a little bit like comic books. Anyone can come back, whatever, you know. And maybe there's a good reason. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I'll give it a 7. I'll give it a 7. So there you go. That's Flashpoint Beyond. Batman Killing Time, issue 6, Tom King writing, David Marquez on the art, and we had the reveal at the end of last issue that Clock King is behind it all, and he's the one who's been looking for the Eye of God. And this basically, you know, the first half of this is effectively how he fits into a lot of the things that we saw earlier in the issues. You know, when he met Riddler and Catwoman, when he, you know, realized certain things. Early on, you see him in Athens, and he says he sees bats overhead, so he knows he's here. So we eventually come back round to Batman coming to like talk to him, you know, towards the end of the issue, and all that. But yeah, so there's definitely just some of this is, you know, very pretty because it's Marquez art, but it's mostly filling in these gaps of like how he fits into things. And we see that he actually killed some snipers who were going to shoot Batman during the whole big massacre incident that went down. But yeah, obviously, yeah, art's gorgeous. Like, there's that 2-page spread of him just walking through the battlefield holding the eye as everyone else is killing each other.
Yeah,
and it's just cool. It's just beautiful. There's like an explosion in the background. It's like that and like the gunfire in the foreground is the only sort of orangey red, and then everything else is you know, blues and stuff. So it's got great contrast. And then there's stuff with Batman like making sure that the bombs that the feds are trying to drop in the whole thing don't actually kill everyone, so he ends up flying the helicopter further up into the sky and diving out of it so it explodes high enough not to hurt anyone.
And then he coasts down trying to save as many people as he can, which that's the strongest thing that came out of this was when he lands on the battleground, he goes and he tries to help as many people as he can, regardless of their affiliation.
For a story that's been so obviously obsessed with the mechanics and the time of everything, that was a genuinely kind of sweet Batman moment. Is him, even though this is all like thugs for villains, he's going around trying to save as many as he can. And that page is gorgeous as well because you've got the sort of the fog of war that's kind of there because of all the gunfire and stuff. And it says, you know, he saved a few, but not many. You know, and you just see all these like bodies lying around. Because later on, he confirms 130 something people died. Like, that's
137.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, those pages are gorgeous.
Good.
But then we find out that, you know, like this pawn shop guy's got the Eye of the God in the future. You know, when I say the future, I mean like, you know, months from now, nothing too far. And he's basically selling it to this woman. He says, I'm not really sure how much it's worth, but I paid this for it, so that's what I'll give it to you. And she's like, oh, it's pretty, I'll take it. And then later on, you know, we find out this is before the, you know, Batman coming to see Clock King. He doesn't have it anymore. And Clock King tries to wax lyrically, but Batman usually just punches him, or elbows him, sorry, knocks him out. Yeah,
and he drops I thought it was a really cool visual thing, too, that when he closes his clock for the final time and Batman's, he cuts his hand.
He crushes it in his hand until it bleeds.
Yeah, he crushes it in his hand, and the glass cuts him. He makes a note, and then his hand's bleeding this whole time. So when he... You know, we see him drop it, and it's this blood-covered watch. It's a really cool visual for this whole series.
Yeah, and at the end of the issue, because in the pawn shop scene, the guy casually mentions, "Oh, he got it off like a flight attendant. Yeah, who got it on a plane." And the last scene of the book is Clock King on a plane, just like, you know, looking at it, and the flight attendant starts talking to him, and he says, "Oh, it's just something to pass the time." The idea that it was never really that important. You know, it was that, you know, it was something. It was something to obsess on.
Yeah, and it's the whole idea here that this madness that this eye has brought. There's nothing supernatural about it. It's just people letting their greed overwhelm them, and then blinding them. And so we get the tie back to the ancient Greece story, in that basically it's used as an explainer for, you know, when you hit these heights of like a madness or of a rage, what the Eye of God is your clarity to look back at all the sins you committed while in that rage. And so I thought that was a nice tie to all of this, right? Was that Clock King looks at this, that he finally got his hands dirty at the end, after everything was all said and done.
And the whole thing is him kind of looking back and all the events that led up to this, getting this eye. So yeah, there's a nice, little sort of thematic
little
tag to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Riddler also shoots the FBI lady or whoever it is,
Agent F word.
Yeah. Shoots her in the back of the head, but she somehow survives. And this was the only thing that made me think maybe there's plans for like some sort of follow up, because she's like in physical therapy and she does nothing but swear and drop F-bombs, but she will say Batman. So she's like Batman, F Batman, like just constantly.
That's me when I read a Batgod story, so I relate.
Oh sure, I bet you do.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a really dark scene where he shoots her in the back of the head.
Yeah.
And he's pissed that he got betrayed by both her and Catwoman.
Yep. And Bruce goes to see Ra's al Ghul, talk to him about the Eye of God and the Help, and that this is why the Help's different from you, is that he knows when to stop, and because you're effing crazy.
Yeah,
I did love that from Ra's to Bruce.
If there's a critique of this issue, is that it's maybe a shame that there's basically no help, because his part of the story's done.
Right. Well, again, if this is meant to have a follow-up, I could see the Help coming back out of retirement to do whatever, maybe to team up with Batman, because Batman needs his help to resolve whatever is next.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, right. But yeah, no. And then so before because I had to finish this as we were, gearing up, and I mentioned offhandedly to Pete, I was like, if I think I understood this, it was really good, and it was that tag towards the end of Clock King looking back with this clarity at all the things that he had done to lead to this moment. And that kind of the eye in and of itself is worthless. It's all what people put into it, because it goes back to ancient Greece, and they're at a temple of Athena, and there was this mask over this actor who had been in a play about the rage that we'd seen earlier in the story, and she carves out this eye, and that's where it becomes the Eye of Athena. And so it's not like this big supernatural thing. It's who's ever looking for it, whoever wants it, what they put into it, which I thought that was a real nice little touch King put on there.
Yeah. It was a fun miniseries. It was, it was distinct. It had its own mechanic, the way it did jump around the timeline and constantly use time as this kind of driving force. Made it feel distinct to any other books that I was reading, and it was especially good in the sense that you've got several Bat books at any one time. So
it might be my second favorite King Bat story, because that Mr. Freeze one, the jury, is still top notch. But this, I would put this over any of his other stuff from his run. I thought this was really well put together, no filler whatsoever, and yeah, it
was very tight. So and the art obviously from Marquez was stunning pretty much throughout the whole thing. And thankfully there was no fill-ins or anything like that. It was just Marquez the whole time. So
throughout,
so good stuff. All right, what are you giving Killing Time issue 6?
I'm at 8.5.
Yeah, I'll probably go straight 8 on this. It was very good. So, all right, next up, DC versus Vampires issue 8, James Tynion the 4th, and Matthew Rosenberg writing, with Otto Schmidt on the art. So this issue is kind of a transition issue in that we kind of formed the plans that the various groups of characters were going to do last issue. This issue kind of ends with them all on their way to do those things. So this issue is very much just kind of the prep and the kind of the like Black Canary trying to talk Oliver out of doing his like crazy run where he's going to try and save people at the Kent farm and things like that.
Farms.
Obviously there's a lot of comedy early on with Damien being a little shit about the House of Mystery. And why is it not the House of Secrets? Are they different? What's the point of... isn't Secrets mysterious, so aren't they both technically mysterious?
I do love that, but I also just love the concept of constantly, like, just don't think about it too much. It's magic.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's going there for their help and stuff. Dinah tries to talk Oliver out of the thing, out of going, but realizes she's not going to be able to, and they kind of have this heart-to-heart, so they end up spending a night together before they're going to go off and do this. A lot of other magic-based characters show up at the House of Mystery. later in the issue, led by Jason Blood. So, you know.
Yeah, so the magic casters are trying to, right? They're trying to purge out at the House of Secrets, right? They're trying to purge out the vampirism, but it just seems to be them killing the vampires. So it's almost as if there's like not exactly a cure. And then that's when there's the knock on the door with Jason Blood and his group. It looks like a vampires, right?
Yeah. It says he's here to have everyone forget something. And then we have Supergirl feeling very,
vulnerable.
Ryan Choi ends up giving her a bit of a pep talk about how she's still Supergirl, and he's worried that she's up in this ledge on this building in the city, and like because if you don't remember, they're in the Kandor bottled city.
Yeah, they're Nightlight, and so she doesn't have any of her Kryptonian powers. And so he's like, how about you just not sit on that ledge because you're not invulnerable anymore?
Yeah. It's a fair point. And obviously they're pinning a lot of hope on her, and if she gets to Australia and is able to, get to the sun and whatever. So, and then we also have Barbara having these nightmares, and it's like these steamy vampire romance nightmares between Dick and Starfire. Yeah. So she's waking up, in the cold sweat as you do, still obsessed with killing him and stuff. And Constantine is there, and he is just bloody and beaten to hell.
Burned, it looks like.
Yeah, but he doesn't remember, and that ties into what Jason Blood said. He's here to make them forget something, so he doesn't remember exactly what happened. So yeah, so she basically just like go to Gotham and kill that bastard Dick Grayson. So like I say, this issue is largely a lot of setup. Babs goes to get Harley, who's currently held captive by Thinker and Professor Peg, and
such a good scene.
Yeah, basically, beats the crap out of them. Harley, when she gets out, starts beating them up. Frankenstein, who's kind of working as their henchman, turns sides and offers these services to the girls by the end, because he believes in what they're doing more. Yeah,
I like his working with them is because it's the old Spock quote, right? The needs of the few, or what's it from Star Trek 2? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
There you go.
Yeah, he's only working with them because her blood can kill vampires, but then when he sees like, oh no, these girls are way more noble, I'm gonna go with them. Yeah, or with her.
Because keep in mind, Harley has the Lex blood in her, the magic stuff. So. Yeah, there's a little bit of awkward comedy here. I feel like Harley's joke about wanting a TV with unlimited porn felt a bit forced to me.
It's again, I feel it's Rosenberg not writing a voice that I like for Harley. It's not necessarily wrong. It just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt a bit. I don't know.
It made me roll my eyes. I was like, ugh.
Overly edgy, I guess. But yeah. So, and obviously, Black Canary's there as well. Supergirl and Steel are on the ship going towards Australia. Black Manta's there.
Yep.
But of course, they've attracted the attention of Atlanteans and the creatures that Arthur holds control over, and they're getting attacked. And it's like, well, we're going to have to fight our whole way there now. So, yeah, fun stuff. But then, of course, they do get a bit of a rescue. Jaina shows up. And as we sort of saw a glimpse of before, she now has both her and her brother's powers and can make water-based animals.
Yeah, I was so happy they explained that. Like, they didn't have to, but her going like, somehow I have his power too, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, she makes a big water tiger basically, and
it's bust out. It took me a second to realize what was happening because the art's pretty good, right? It's Otto Schmidt, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like. For a second, I was like, is this a Beast Boy thing? Like, what? And then when she said, like, yeah, I became water and they breathed me in, and then I just reformed into this tiger, this monster. And I was like, all right, that's pretty metal. That's pretty great.
Yeah. Because she rips out of some dude. Like, this Atlantean soldier or whatever. Like, he rips in half as she comes out of him. It's a pretty hardcore concept. So she's there to help Supergirl and Co. deal with their mission. And the final page is just this split three panel page. Yep. The first one is the group going on the way to Gotham, which is Batgirl, Harley, Canary, and Frankenstein. The middle one is just Oliver on his own, on his way to the Kent farm. and the third one's on the ship with Supergirl, Steel, and Black Manta. So, you know, like I don't have a whole lot to say about this issue. I think it did a good job in that it feels like it is building up to a big showdown in all three locations. But as an issue on its own, there's not like a whole lot of big, swings, for itself. If that makes sense.
I really the high point to me was the Atom talking with Supergirl. I thought that was a really nice to kind of come in a world without hope. Why hope is important. I do like that because I feel like my one thing I'm not enjoying so much on the book is how down and dour it all seems. It seems very, very hopeless in a way where like Deceased should have had that feeling, but I feel like Taylor was really good at balancing it, right? Where it felt like all is lost, but there's still, as long as our heroes stand. But I feel here in this vampires universe, it's reverse. It's like they're almost doomed to fail. And I don't like reading that. Like it bums me out. But it doesn't make it good or bad. It's just, my enjoyment of it affects. So, but the art, I feel like Schmidt here is back on form. There were a couple issues where it was a little bit early on. It's a little bit off, but here it's back, and the design he gave Babs in her, vampire armor, I think looks really cool. So
I think what I liked about this issue, and its build to like the big showdowns that are coming in all three of the plot lines, is it gave all of those characters kind of a moment or a scene to, because Supergirl had her moment with Ryan to kind of like set up her fears, her like kind of like this weight of the world that's kind of on her shoulders right now. Both Black Canary and Oliver obviously both benefited from their conversation where it kind of sets up why they both need to do what they feel they need to do. Barbara having her nightmares about Dick, because obviously that's a very mixed emotions for her because she's in love with him, but now he's this monster that has to be killed. Like I thought it did a good job of like sort of giving them all something. So it really set up, okay, these are our main characters for getting into this back chunk of the run. Which is cool. It is nice for some of these characters to get a spotlight, which is cool. So, and Jana got a big entrance. Her big entrance was glorious.
That's
nice.
my other big moment. I liked that. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. I do like how they worked that in. So,
yeah. All right, what are you giving DC versus Vampires issue 8?
Yeah, this one a 7.
Yeah, I'll go 7.5. I think. I think it's a good transition issue and build issue. So there you go. Aquaman Andromeda issue 2, Ram V writing with Christian Ward on the art. We were very high on the first issue of this. Liked it quite a bit. Had the interesting nitpick that the Aquaman stuff is probably the worst part of that first issue. I'm happy to say that wasn't an issue here in this one, because when he does show up here, it is in direct like correlation of what's going on. He shows up in the action, if you will. Yeah,
and it is very much a less is more, right?
Yeah.
We're still getting Black Manta. I almost said Black Adam, but Black Manta and Arthur, but they're treated as such big deals, right? It's almost as if they're just appearing in this other story about
we're following the regular people, and then they're coming in occasionally and being these kind of larger than life characters. So it sets up this flashback early on of the captain, Felt, and how he was given this assignment to sort of run this ship that might never even have to do anything, but it was on retainer, and like the other guy was like, oh, I got the big proper promotion, like this must suck for you, and he ends up punching him, and he's got this temper, and it shows that he feels sort of held back by the Navy or whatever. So it kind of gives you a bit of his motivation and characterization and why he's going to be determined to keep going, even when he's like told that it's dangerous or told that he shouldn't later on. And then eventually, of course, he's death, but we'll get to that when we get there. So they've got these fancy suits. There was a few. Obviously, I probably dropped the Abyss a couple of times in the first issue, but there was a couple of things in this issue that really stuck out to me about the comparison. One is that they've got this fancy suit that just repurposes the H2O into hydrogen for power and oxygen for obviously for them, but they're not breathing it in as air, right? It's going straight into their lungs, and just and if you've ever seen the Abyss, in that they develop a thing where they sort of breathe liquid oxygen so they can go deeper into the water, and it was making me think of that a little bit. It's like, oh, it's a different thing, Yeah,
that's the one thing I remember from the Abyss. Is the scene where the dude freaks out because he's in the liquid oxygen, and they're telling him to just breathe, breathe like normal.
Yeah, because they say here it feels like drowning. I mean, I have to question, surely liquid being in your lungs would still be a problem, even if it is technically.
Yeah, but I remember the rationalization when I've read stuff about the abyss was when you're even in a pressurized environment like that, the pressure is so great that your lungs won't actually work like to breathe in the air. So they need that liquid to push back. But it's still process them. I don't know if that's real science or if that was just, made up for the movie.
It's good enough for a movie, although
it's good enough for here too, because I buy like it uses the hydrogen for heat because they're at such depths that it's cold, and for the pressure, and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah. So this is so Christian Ward doesn't have to draw scuba tanks and stuff and be all encumbered. So yeah, it works.
Yeah. So this is effectively the most of this issue is like them going towards the mysterious like ship that fell out the sky and try to make their way in. So it's every sci-fi horror story or movie you've seen where there's a slow entrance, going in, like there's no life forms here, so let's look for anything we can sort of like understand. Can we find the engine room? And of course there's a big massive central chamber with an orb that might be powering the whole ship and whatever else.
Learn from enough movies. Don't go near that orb.
Oh,
that
yeah.
Orb's bad news.
Oh yeah. So eventually there's a bit of a ruckus, like something like it tips over and some of it's falling down. And that's when Aquaman shows up and saves our main character Yvette from the falling debris, and that's also around the same time that we see Mantis watching them and saying, "Okay, we're going to try and infiltrate that ship," and that's what he goes off to do. So yeah, it's all, and obviously they're constantly talking to the people back, but so Yvette's with a guy that gets hurt in the in this debris. And when she's talking on the comms, like Aquaman, sort of, indicates not to mention him. Like, don't tell anyone about that I'm here. Yeah. And sure enough, like she's like, hey, you're like the king of the seas, right? You're the thing my dad told me about as a kid, like the stories of someone on the water. And yeah, but he's basically, tell your captain that you need to leave, that no one should be here. This is an alien ship, and it did fall from the sky, but not in the way you think it did. It was built in Atlantis. And it's
that was the mind blow for me. It was like, whoa. So is this like some kind of Atlantean weapon that they shot?
Well, I'm thinking prison. I'm thinking there's something.
Yeah.
Well,
once we got to more as he's saying this, I'm like, whoa. So was this like a weapon that they were going to use on the surface world, and then they sank it, and no one's supposed to go near it, and then as the story got going, it felt like it was more like a prison.
Yeah. And when they're seeing the orb, when the captain and the other dude that's with him goes towards the orb, they're seeing like faces in the orb, and then you get the reveal as it goes on that this thing is manifesting things from their mind, and that's actually why there was a Kraken last issue. It's not because there was a Kraken down here; it's because that dude was reading a book about a Kraken. Yeah.
So I don't know if you've ever seen Sphere.
I have. Yes, I did it on Ace.
When that started to happen, I was getting the vibe of Sphere when they open up the drawer and there's nothing but 20,000 Leagues books because it's manifesting fears. And I was just like, oh man, okay. I know what MV's doing. So...
Yeah. Or maybe a comparison more people might get is the State Puff Marshmallow Man.
That too.
Ray thought a State Puff Marshmallow Man, and that's why he popped up. So there you go. Yeah. So... Yeah, Black Manta comes on and like threatens one of the dudes. He's like, here's like a USB stick. I'm going to call upon you for something, and if you don't do it, like I can get back out of this ship. I've got cloaking tech. I'm like the goddamn Predator.
Yeah, so that's what got me. So when he enters, I didn't realize what was going on. And I thought something from the ship got into their ship. And then I realized after staring at the panel for a couple seconds, oh no, that's a footsteps. That's cloaked Manta. So I thought that was Christian Ward doing that, where it took me a second. That was a pretty cool touch.
Yeah. So there's a lot of glorious stuff. There's like the flashback for the other guy and like his grandfather like dunking his head in the water, and then it sort of cuts to him being eviscerated by the light of the orb. Everything's shaking, and that's when Black Manta like talks to the guy on the ship, the guy with the beard, and basically threatens him and is like, yeah, I'm going to be calling upon you at some point, and you're going to do what I say. So, really interesting stuff. Obviously, Yvette can try to convince the captain that no, you can't stay here. You have to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then later, Arthur calls it a prison. He says I am right inside that prison. Right inside that prison is the bane of Atlantis. And I'm like, Atlantis has a bane?
But instead of talking like Tom Hardy's bane, it's actually clear. But you have to be underwater to hear it.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So yeah, that's a setup when it's revealing all this stuff, and it's kind of like cutting around the different things, and you realize that that's why the Kraken existed. And the captain's getting really tetchy, doesn't want to leave, and he's getting really paranoid that the others are like wanting him to fail, and that sort of ties into his backstory. And he ends up hitting one of the crew members, slapping her across the face, and it's this really dark moment. It feels quite
yeah,
and you can actually see what looks like in the orb, the prison orb, if you want to call it that. It looks like whoever's in there is smiling when he's making.
Yeah.
It's like he's feeding off the rage and the anger and the fear. So it's right before he slaps her. You can see this like purple figure smiling inside the orb. And I have to assume that that's like a hint of who this is, and that it maybe is someone we're going to like recognize or understand. But as he's strangling another crew member, because someone tries to step in after he hits the other one, and the captain's strangling this other guy, you sort of see him react, and then you realize someone stabbed him in the top of the head with a knife. And that's the last page. That's the cliffhanger.
Yeah, that was pretty. I wasn't expecting the head stab in this.
No, it was pretty violent, and so it's the older crewman is the one who did it, and everyone's shocked, and that's the end of book 2.
Yeah, and he was the one that was paired with Yvette the whole time, right? The older crewman.
Yeah.
And so it seems like he's protective over her. Also, there was a part where the guy that's looking at the orb, it goes to a flashback of him talking to his grandpa.
Yeah, that's the one that ends with his grandpa dunking his head in the water before.
Yeah, and then that orb discharges and fries him.
Oh yeah, obliterates him.
Yeah, and that it their whole conversation is about belief, and his dad said that believing in God's is stupid and stuff, and that's where Grandpa teaches him a lesson by drowning him, and that's his undoing. That's the last thing he thinks about before, and so I thought that was pretty interesting in the scheme of what we know how Ramby likes to write about ideas and stuff like so like what if this isn't just a prison with one person in it, but it's a prison of put all of the bad beliefs of Atlantis or whatever. That's what this thing represents. Or because it's pretty weird to see how that is. I don't know how that story fits in with the rest of this, with what we saw. So it just got my brain going.
Sure, yeah. Obviously, the art's gorgeous. There's a lot of stuff with the ships, the moodiness of them swimming towards the mysterious ship and all the rest of it. I guess if there's anything, I think this issue is probably better than issue 1. But the only thing I would say that is technically slightly lesser than issue 1 is probably there's not as many big spectacle moments in there, because issue 1 had the big Kraken moment and Arthur showing up, and it had stuff like that. This issue doesn't necessarily have that, which is maybe the one thing that makes it feel...
No, but it progresses the story for, without having those big moments.
Yeah,
right?
the story's fantastic. And, it didn't have those 1 or 2 weaker moments with Arthur where he's with the village or whatever. Everything with Arthur felt good. Everything with Black Manta felt good. And even the moment where, like, someone in Manta's ship says, hey, Curry's here. And like you sort of get the reaction moment from Black Manta. Like, it's like, oh, okay, so this is a functioning Aquaman and Black Manta who know each other. This isn't, because we're in like an Elseworld effectively. We're still sort of learning the rules and what they're doing. But yeah, our main character Yvette does swim back to the ship, so she's on her way back to the mysterious ship at the end. So she's not there to witness the whole murder thing, which is what ends the issue. So. No, it's interesting. She goes back out to talk to Arthur basically and ask why, what's going on.
Yeah.
So, no, very good, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean these Black Label books have been mostly killing it.
Yeah. So
honestly.
far, so good.
Yeah. So, what are you giving Andromeda issue 2?
I'm giving the same 0.5.
I'm just straight 9, I think.
Yeah.
Straight 9 from me. The second one, Andromeda. So, cool. Alright, well, every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, you can make myself or Connor read a book at one of the higher tiers. And I've got 2 that I'm going to talk about now. So I'll be talking about American Vampire issue 28, which, for reference sake, is the start of the 5th trade, just in case anyone's sort of keeping track of like where I am in the timeline here. So start of a new arc, start of a new thing. And this issue is basically like the reveal of that Dracula exists in American Vampire lore. There's this character who comes to meet Hobbs at a little cafe in London, and what year is it? This says at the start, 1954, and this guy shows up, and there's a moment where he almost calls him Ren, and he cuts him off and says, "No, call me this." And part of me went, "Was he going to say Renfield? Is that where this was going?" And sure enough, like this is all about. He's there to talk to him, and it's all a bit of a diversion, and he's got an attack planned. Hobbs is basically telling him to piss off. He's got like multiple people like with guns pointed at him, in the crowd and stuff like that. But this guy has, and I'll just call him Renfield. He's bought a U-boat, and he's going to fire at London Bridge because it turns out, because he keeps saying that he's here for something, and Hobbs keeps saying, "No, what you're here for is like buried, and hidden away. Like you're never getting to it." And clearly, wherever it is inside the tower, the London Bridge. And this is what the submarine hits at. It fires upon one of the base elements of London Bridge, and Hobbs runs back screaming, "Is the coffin secure? Is the coffin secure?" And when he gets to this vassal's base, there's vampires just eating the shit out of all the people who are in there. It is just a bloodbath, and someone knocks him out, but they knock him out with a skull of someone else, like a skull. They hit him over the head with a skull, and that knocks him out, which is delightfully, like menacing. I'm into it. That's what I'm saying. I think it's a really good. That's like the entire first half of the issue, and I think it's really effective in the sense that you're just sort of building and learning. Okay, what we hear, because I don't think the book thus far has ever just like sort of like presented Hobbs as the character we're following before. He always pops up in someone else's story, so it kind of feels like a big deal to begin with. And then there's these teases, and then his panic that's that they're getting to something, that the bad guys have gotten to what they've been hiding. It's like, and at this point I'm like, I've already kind of like, and I'm sure I read this. I definitely did read this like a long time ago, but I'd forgotten it. So at this point I'm like, okay, it's definitely Dracula. They're talking about Dracula, right?
Yeah.
So then we cut to Paris, and Felicia Book is raising, the kid that was cured, the one that was a vampire and was thinged. What was McGugan? Was that the name of the cop in Vegas?
Oh my God, Cash McGugan.
Yeah. So it's his son, who is now normal, but he's having a hard time at school. He's not doing well in tests. The kids are kind of picking on him, but she picks him up and brings him home. They're just being really supportive and talking about helping him with his homework and stuff. But then she realizes that the Hobbs is there and says, "You know what? Go and play with that other kid that you play with. Go do that. You can do your homework later." Acts very out of character, which she can kind of tell, but she pulls out her gun out of her bag, and sure enough, it's Hobbs sitting in there. It's kind of like in a Winter Soldier when Samuel L. Jackson's just kind of sitting in the corner.
Yeah.
It's kind of that kind of moment. But she comes in, and he's there. Because she's like, "I thought, we'd have an understanding that you would never come and see me again, and you'd leave me alone." And he's like, "Yeah, that was the plan." And he even knows about the kid. He knows that he was cured. He wasn't meant to, but he does. But he's here because he's got nowhere else left to go, because the worst has happened. That the bridge was built around a secret base that was designed to keep something in particular in, someone who was captured. And it's all about building up to the last page where he eventually says what it is. He describes the building of the base. He describes like how evil this person is. That this vampire, if unleashed, can control all of the other vampires of the same species, and people get kind of crazy and like their inhibitions go away when they're near him. Like he has this aura, he's that powerful, and it's all just building up to that final panel where he says, "We're talking about Dracula." and that's the cliffhanger. You know, I think most people who read the issue are going to see it coming, what he's talking about, and that's fine. I think it's almost like the perfect time. You know, you've had 4 trades at this point. You've had a miniseries. You've dealt with all this stuff building up, and if you're going from what he said, which was like 1870 something, is when they caught Dracula. Which I think that may be when the Dracula book's set. So I think that's like an intentional choice to like pick the same time period. This is kind of like, okay, people are probably wondering for a long time, are they ever going to do Dracula? Hell, even the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Funnily enough, it was the first episode of season 5. If that correlates to the start of the 5th trade, you know, that's that's when you introduce the Dracula in this universe. Yeah, but no, I mean the way it handled it was good. Like Hobbs' panic and the attack on the bridge and kind of the fear that this thing's gotten out, and then him going to like a character that we do know who's living this peaceful life and trying to, but is going to be pulled back in because the stakes have just risen considerably. And Dracula's on the loose. It's all very exciting. This was a hype issue to get you hyped for the story. It did a really good job doing that. And I don't think it's supposed to be a huge shock when he says Dracula. It's meant to be exciting that he finally says it, that he finally just says the word. But
yeah,
you know, I think like most people are going to know what he's building up to by the time you get to that last page, and that's okay. It's kind of written with that in mind. And yeah, and the art is, you know, solid as ever. Moody, deep inks. Very scratchy, the usual horror shtick. I particularly liked how when it transitioned to Paris, like everything felt very nice and like natural again. Because, you know, it's a classroom, it's a nice, you know, climate, it's a, you know, beautiful city. It feels very homely and it feels very, you know, it's a very good contrast to all the reds and blacks and the horror of what was just happening in the base in London Bridge. So, very well constructed issue. I'd maybe even go as far as say this is a 9 out of 10 because it does get you hyped for what's to come, and that's its purpose. And it does so basically in 2 extended sequences. So,
trying to think if I've read this one because it does seem familiar, but it's been forever since I've got that one. So I gotta check because I have them behind me. I think I have volume 5.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you didn't get this far. Maybe you only got to maybe the previous trade. I don't know. But
yeah,
it's funny because, you know, like we've had a couple of arcs, like the volume 4 arcs, which was the road race stuff, and then the small town, the racist stuff with the older werewolf guys. Those were solid little arcs, but they did kind of feel like slice of life, like in the world arcs as opposed to the main story. This feels like it's getting back to the main story of American Vampire, if there is such a thing. So
yeah, it's the core story because it's like Snyder took some time to flesh out the lore around the main lore.
Yeah,
but now we're getting back to Book and the vassals and all of that stuff, and how you gotta wonder how Skinner's gonna fit in all this. Right? Because if Dracula's coming...
yeah, I suspect he will at some point.
Yeah, he ain't gonna like that. He ain't gonna take kindly to some old dusty European vampire.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. But yeah, that's American Vampire issue 28. The other Patreon book that I'm going to talk about is Animal Man issue 22. The last issue ended with Buddy basically saying, I need time travel. I need to go fix things. That was a cliffhanger, and it kind of made me realize that a couple of moments in previous issues were probably him traveling back through time. Particularly the figure that he saw, you know, out behind the house in that one issue. So this issue does legitimately start with him going to some various people, and I'll just mention it because the artist is different than normal. It's Paris Cullins and Steve Montano on art, with obviously Grant Morrison writing. So he goes to see John Starr for help, and he's got a bunch of clocks Back to the Future still around, but he's basically, his like magic hourglass isn't working anymore, and he's like really like crazy and upset about it, and he's just kind of freaking out and looking at his hands, and it's a big disappointment. But it's this implication that, you know, time travel can do wacky stuff to you, and this guy was time traveling a lot, so there's dangers here beyond just, like, you know, messing up the timeline. But he goes to the Time Masters, to Rip Hunter and the others there, and Booster's there as well, and he's like, hey, I need to borrow a time machine. And they're like, this is a bit sketchy. We don't really just hand out time machines willy nilly. Like, you can really mess things up, and you won't even tell us like what you're going to do with it. And he eventually lies and just says he's going to confirm something or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they give him a time machine, which is just like a backpack sort of time device. And he goes, and Booster does have some more knowledge about what he's doing because he's like, oh, like, you know, what did you tell them? He's like, I lied. And that it finally brings in Arkham again. It brings in this character, who Hayden, who's been freaking out in the, you know, in the cell, the one who's been seeing the comic books and stuff, and is aware that the like, you know, he, on the second page here, he's like he's acknowledging that the audience, the reader, is looking at him and calls me a pervert, basically, because we're staring at him. So we've got that sort of coming back into it, which means we're sort of dealing with some timey-wimey stuff. And he's saying things like, oh, they're coming back. And obviously, if you're an Animal Man reader, you're like, oh, is he talking about the family? Or is he talking, you know, is this more line-wide DC stuff that he's referring to at the time? Like, what's going on here? But Animal Man puts on this backpack, and he hits the button, and he feels a bit weird. He's not really sure what's going on. And then you get this really inventive 2-page layout where it's kind of all these like misshapen panels that are all, like, not only are the panels got angles to them and they're not like, you know, they're not rectangles anymore, squares. They're also kind of like falling away, but then sort of falling back in. So they actually kind of go upside down, as does the narration boxes, and then they come back around on the second half of the 2-page layout to being more or less back up the right way again. And he's actually outside the house when Ellen's complaining about Mirror Master showing up. And he tries to yell and talk to them, but it doesn't really work. He sort of fades away too quickly and ends up disappearing and traveling somewhere else. And then he sees his son walking down the street, but he's still kind of invisible. He can't be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically falling through time into like different like moments, different scenes that he's seeing. There's the one where he sees Maxine, and that's kind of the one that's hinted at in the cover, that she actually talks to this version of him. But he fades away again. There's a scene, and I remember this happening as well, where Ellen was painting and her jar got knocked over. That was him when he was invisible.
Oh, no.
You know, so it's like, and part of you can't help but feel like, but all this stuff already happened and they still died, so how can he succeed? Like, how is he going to actually change the future?
Seems like it's futile.
Yeah. So he keeps getting pulled away. There was I think this was in an issue where Cliff was playing with a Ouija board, and like this Animal Man's trying to like manipulate it to like send him a message. Again, doesn't really work, and it all builds up to that time, you know, that end of issue cliffhanger where Buddy did see this other Buddy outside the window and went to, you know, talk to him and remembered this time when he was a kid when he saw him, and then that's when the traveling Animal Man goes. He travels back to when he was this 10-year-old, and 10-year-old Buddy on his bike saw this, you know, faint ghost version of Animal Man, and you know, he's yelling, he's pleading with his father, who's like helping his young self up to see him, so that someone will see him, so that he's not just lost in time, so that he can actually change something. So it's, you know, it's again another example of the desperation. He's like, he basically just falls to his knees and is like, then falls like face down into the ground. He's just upset. He's like, you know, it's no wonder that other guy went crazy traveling through time. He can't like get a handle on it. It's just a mess. And then he's sitting in the park, just like feeling awful, and none other than the Phantom Stranger casually strolls up, and says, "Let me help you," and it calls Buddy a lost spirit. And when Buddy asks who he is, he just says he's a stranger, you know, because thing. And then there's a little extra page at the end. It says prologue, interestingly, rather than epilogue, so it's more of a prologue to what's coming next. But it's the doctors talking about the patient at Arkham, and you know, like he's got like a bunch of comic books now, and he's got like a poster saying "Wanted Ultraman." I assume maybe there's some stuff like maybe tying into like line wide stuff here, but it's the aliens that gave Buddy his power who show up at Arkham, and they're basically surprised that the Doctor doesn't know who it is. So yeah, Dr. Highwater, that's who it is. And so the end is just like, the patient screaming they're coming. So it seems like he was actually meaning the aliens. That's who was coming back. That's who was returning. So maybe the aliens are going to help Buddy get his family back. That's possible. Yeah.
I just know from reading in the New 52 that they were just agents of the Red and made Buddy think they were aliens. So,
Oh, maybe that'll be a big reveal in the last
well, I think episodes. I think that was Lemire adding that to the lore.
Ah, okay, I see.
Right, but who knows? Maybe it's one and the same.
To make it a bit neater, so there's no aliens involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, so fun stuff. Yeah, and like the patient, like he's like streaming, and all these colors are coming out of his mouth. Like comic art is just erupting from his pores or every orifice. So it's a wild visual. I'll give it that. Yeah, no, I mean I enjoyed the issue. It's not. I don't think it quite has the emotional heft that the last couple have had. Obviously, there's those moments where he does feel the weight of it, and he's struggling and he can't do it. But there is kind of that thing. It was almost like I was saying in the start of Killing Time this week, which is there's an element of it where it's just kind of like showing you all these scenes again. That it was him in the previous issues, like manipulating something. And while it's neat to see it, it does kind of take up a lot of the pages, and it's not necessarily something that is super captivating and advancing things on its own.
I feel like it is one of those things though that if you were reading it as it was coming out, right, going back and thinking about all of those things that weren't making any sense in the moment, seeing those all play out here, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it shows Morrison had a plan and was sticking to it, and it does feel like it was very well thought out. And I'm curious to see what they do next with the Phantom Stranger stuff. I think because it was just him falling through time randomly though to different time periods. Yeah. It was less narratively engaging to me than like when he's like on the mission to go do something and he's got like a motivation, and like I think the last two issues were like two of the best issues that the books had. This is still pretty good. Don't get me wrong. This is still like a solid 8, but it's like not as fulfilling as a whole on its own to read, I would say. But I am excited to see where it's going and how this because I'm getting relatively near the end now because I think it's only about 30 issues, something like that. So we'll see. I want to say 29 or 30.
Gotta Google this.
Grant Morrison's Animal Man.
Let's see. Of course, they don't put how many issues, because he ran from 88 to 90. So,
yeah, that's only 3 years. So,
yeah, so probably 30. I would have to guess. Because when did he come on? Which issue?
Issue 1.
Okay, so that's volume 2.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah.
So he has 30 issues plus 2 annuals. So he has a 0, 1 through 29, and 2 annuals. Sure. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. That's the Patreon books though. Couple of fun issues, which is nice. But that'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course top 5 books. So, what is your panel / moment of the week?
Oh man. So do I go something from Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, or do I pull from the Mary Marvel book? That's what it's come down to. So I will take the Justice Society showing up, because that moment did put a big old stupid smile on my face.
Naturally. Okay.
Yeah.
Naturally. I think for me, it's actually quite. There's a few books I could take from this week, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to take from Batman. I think in terms of sequential art, I loved Batman trying to get away and then the cape getting grabbed and pulled back down. I really liked that moment. But I also love Nightwing's entrance as well. There was a lot of good there's a lot of good sequential art in that Batman issue, actually. But yeah, that's my pick. What you got for cover of the week, Matt?
Ooh, cover. There's a lot of cool Dark Crisis ones. I would have pulled from Ivy, but I didn't get a chance to read Ivy this week. So, I really do like the Flashpoint Beyond regular cover. But yeah, I'll go with the Flashpoint Beyond regular cover. That one's kind of cool. With the clockwork, with the Vitruvian Batman. I realized I didn't look at the other Batman covers. I looked at every other book but Batman for whatever reason. So I was trying to vamp and it wouldn't load. So oh man, they had the swimsuit variant. That's what I should have gone with.
All right, calm down. So yeah, for me, I like the there's a Dark Crisis variant, which is like it's like the Superman the movie when like Zod and that are like trapped in trial. It's like that.
There's the Trinity.
There's the Trinity. That's kind of a neat cover. Obviously, both the main new champion Shazam cover, which is Shaner, is gorgeous. The Middleton one's also very nice that everyone's obviously going to like. And then there's also a Gary Frank cover, which is very pretty as well. I'm actually going to be a complete and utter parody of myself, though. And, I also want to mention the variant for, what was it? One of the Bat books. There was a Ben Oliver Bat variant for one of the books. It was Killing Time. That was very good. But the one that I'm going to pick is the Nathan Zerdy variant for DC versus Vampires, which is Batgirl holding two crossbows like she's a goddamn vampire slayer.
There you go.
I'm a bit of a parody, but I saw that this week, and I'm like, I'll take the hit comic book series Batgirl the Vampire Slayer.
Right?
Why wouldn't I? Why would I not do that? So there you go. That's my pick.
Barbara the Vampire Slayer.
Babs the Vampire Slayer.
There you go.
All right. What's your art of the week?
Okay, so I really like Sampere on Dark Crisis. Marquez on Killing Time was also very strong. But Doc Shaner can't get enough credit for all the art in the new champion in Shazam. So that's my pick.
It's a tough week because Marquez is phenomenal. Sampere is very good in Dark Crisis. Jimenez is fantastic on Batman. Schmidt is pretty great on vampires. Christian Ward's doing really
Ward. I
ethereal
didn't mention
stuff.
Ward.
Yeah. But I'm going to agree and go Doc Shaner, actually. As much as I said there was a lot of great sequences in Batman, and there is, I love how I love the expressions and I love the overall look of Shaner's art in Shazam. I just think it's perfect tone for the book. It's maybe it sticks out as well this week particularly because it's different to everything else as well. So that's my pick. All right, what is your top 5 books?
All right, so number 1 is New Champion Shazam. Number 2 is who would I put this? Should I give him the same? Let's go Batman Killing Time. 3 is Andromeda. 4 is Dark Crisis. 5 is Batman.
Okay, my number 1 is Andromeda. Number 2 is Champion of Shazam. Number 3 is Batman. Number 4 is Dark Crisis. And number 5 over left. Killing Time or Vampires, I think. Or Beyond, I suppose, but I'm not picking Beyond. I will go number 5 with... I'll go Vampires, but it's close. They're close.
Yeah.
But there you go. That's my top 5. But yeah, a good week. That was a good healthy week of good books. I cannot deny that. So I'll call it a win. All right.
Yeah.
I will tell you what is coming next week from DC Comics. So we have Superman Son of Kal-El issue 14, Harley Quinn 19, Batgirls issue 9, Batman Urban Legends issue 18, Jurassic League issue 4, I Am Batman issue 12, Dark Crisis Worlds Without a Justice League Green Lantern issue 1, which we may read.
I'm reading it, so I'll at least cover it because it's Philip Kennedy Johnson. So
sure. Yep. Future State Gotham issue 16, Deceased War of the Undead Gods issue 1. I did not realize that was starting next week.
Yep.
The final Deceased run. Okay. Good. Nubia, Queen of the Amazons issue 3, Naomi season 2 issue 6, and Wonder Woman 790.
that cover, which is a call out to the Hikatea,
Yeah.
the Rucka, is hilarious to me.
Is it just me, or is it weird that Wonder Woman's at the bottom of this list? Because these are sorted by pools, and Wonder Woman's usually healthy up the chart.
Is it? It's not Alpha?
No, not even close. Start with Superman.
Oh shoot, we did. I don't think too good, too well.
Yeah, that's a lot of people uncheck that on this website if if it's fallen that far.
Must have. I don't know. Maybe it's making them question things that they didn't before. I
don't know. But yeah, I mean, you could say that, Matt, but the last issue wasn't that good.
Yeah, that too.
I appreciate the sentiment and that there's assholes out there, but the last issue also just wasn't that good. But yeah, so that's what's coming next. So a bit of a weird week. Week 2 has been a bit odd for a little while. But yeah, we'll have some fun. We'll talk about some comics when you join us then. So please do. Yeah, what else should I tell you? I should tell you about Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can go and support all the content that we make and do, in particular this podcast, which you obviously enjoy if you're here at this end part of the show. Of course, you can get the show early at the $5 tier. You get it whenever it's ready on the Saturday night, as opposed to waiting for the Sunday. Depending on your time zone, it may be quite late, admittedly, but it means it'll be there for you on Sunday morning if you would like it a little bit early. Otherwise, though, you can, of course, get us on the Twitters at DC Comics Podcast, help share us out to other people, give us a good rating on iTunes, wherever you get your podcast from. All those things do help spread the show and help us grow. So please do any and all of those things if you wish. So there you go. Yeah, and if you want to come hang out, I do stream on Twitch. I both play games and do movie watch parties on there. It's just twitch.tv/MailFuzzTV if you want to go do that. I'm trying to make a point of promoting things I don't normally bring up, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I'll rotate through them.
Put a spotlight on things.
Yeah. I'll rotate through them, but you know, I'll rotate. You know. So anyway, yeah. So there you go. That's episode 317. Hopefully you had a fun time, and we will see you next week for 318. So thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.